John Oldfield is the CEO of Accelerate Global. His firm advises NGOs and government contractors, and he's joining us now. John, thank you for being here with us. I first just want to ask you about some breaking news that the president just signed this executive memo directing a review of funding allocated to all NGOs that depend on federal government funding. I just want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, Jessica, first of all, thank you for covering this important and under-recognized and developing, obviously rapidly developing story. I haven't had a chance to review that executive memo yet, but let's be positive, let's be optimistic about this. There is a time and a place for foreign aid reform. I don't think anybody's questioning that. The time is always and the place is everywhere. There are always ongoing efforts to reform, to improve, to increase the effectiveness of U.S. foreign assistance. I would hope that that memo would push us in the right direction. The right direction is not a stop work order. The right direction is to stop the stop work order, get back to work, and ask the grown-up questions that need to be asked about how USAID and its many implementing partners, many of whom are suffering, can actually do its job better. So I hope that memo is a step in the right direction, and let's give the president the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and to that end, I know you've said that the administration is asking a lot of the right questions when it comes to USAID, but they're asking them in the wrong way and in too abrupt a fashion, is what you said. Tell us more about that, because that's what you were getting at. It's this idea that the work should continue and then you should be evaluating it, is what it sounds like you're saying.
Jessica, I think that's exactly right. I give the credit to the administration for asking these difficult questions. Every incoming president of the United States has a right. I would even say every incoming president of the United States has an obligation to ask these difficult questions about fraud, waste, abuse, etc. in any federal agency up to and including USAID. But the abrupt stop work order, the illegality of the stop work order is concerning. On its face, it's concerning, and it's also concerning because those questions, the way they're being asked, don't give any breathing room to anybody across the spectrum of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Take a step back, stop the work order, stop the bleeding, stop the unnecessary chaos and disruption, and then I think we're going to get better answers from USAID about how it can be more effective in enhancing water security across the globe, how it can be more effective in increasing economic prosperity of our future trading partners, how USAID can be more effective in identifying and preventing the outbreaks of the next infectious diseases. Take Ebola in Uganda right now. I think giving a little bit more time for USAID stakeholders to answer these questions is going to give us a chance to get ahead of unstable, insecure situations in the Middle East, where you have an Iraqi farmer who does not have water, cannot farm, cannot feed his family, and looks to a violent extremist organization to pay him $100 to plant an improvised explosive device. USAID's core focus is on preventing, getting ahead of these problems. And Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis said it best. He said to Congress a number of years ago, if you do not fully fund the U.S. State Department and USAID, you need to give me more bullets. And nobody wants to be there, least of all the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, and we, again, just getting, as you mentioned, this is going quickly, just getting news while you were talking there that the Trump administration is expected to drastically reduce the workforce at USAID with just under 300 essential personnel staying, while the rest of the agency's direct hires are being put on leave as of Friday. And that's a workforce of about 10,000 people around the world. So of those 10,000, which includes thousands of contractors, many of whom have been furloughed or fired so far, they want to keep just 300 essential direct personnel. Again, that's reporting from our colleagues on that. That's a much smaller number than what currently exists. And what is the real world impact of pulling that many people out that suddenly?
Well, Jessica, it's important to provide a little bit of background here. First of all, the USAID is a federally, statutorily required agency. This isn't something that can be unilaterally, have its head cut off unilaterally by any incoming administration. So first of all, the sense of Congress is not to dismantle USAID. The sense of Congress in any number of authorizing legislations and appropriations processes is not to have USAID be a rounding error in a corner room in the corner of the basement in the State Department. The sense of Congress is that USAID's 10 to 14,000 employees continue to work effectively on health, on water, on education, on democracy and governance. No, so first of all, this is, I look forward to Congress being more actively opposed or pushing back against the White House's stop work order here. Yeah. Secondly, the impact on the ground is very, very difficult to quantify. It's a better question than you might think, simply because who can talk on the record? Who is willing to talk on the record about this right now? I derive no revenue from USAID or any of its contractors. I'm free to speak about this, but a lot of my friends and colleagues are scared to death, not just because they're losing their jobs, which is happening as we speak, but because they're losing the ability to have an impact. Rush Limbaugh said it best. He says these folks are out there trying to make a difference. They're not out there trying to get rich. They're trying to make a difference. They're trying to improve water security, improve infectious disease responses, to improve primary education for girls across the global South. These aren't people looking at this as a career, as job security. They're people out there trying to make a difference. It's important to note, Jessica, that many of those people are without jobs. Many of those organizations are frankly going bankrupt. Now, you might ask, well, why don't they have reserve funds set aside? Why don't they have rainy day funds set aside? They don't have rainy day funds set aside, nor should they. You know, they're tasked by the U.S. Congress, by USAID, on behalf of the U.S. taxpayer, to go out there and to solve today's problems with today's money. They're not, their job is not to sit on a pile of that money and wait for a rainy day. Their job is to meet, to respond, to prevent bad things from happening right now. Lastly, droughts will happen, but famines are optional. We can prevent droughts from becoming destabilizing famines, leading to tens of thousands of immigrants trying to cross the Mediterranean. Floods will happen, but cholera outbreaks are optional. Floods will happen, but we can get ahead of the outbreak of the next infectious disease. But right now, we've shot ourselves in the foot by almost completely removing the development part of U.S. foreign policy, and I think that's short-sighted.
Well, thank you for laying that out for us. We really appreciate it again, and as it's happening in real time. John Oldfield, CEO of Accelerate Global, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Jessica.